The 14th Amendment was one of a couple of amendments that followed the Civil War, and it was at that time motivated by the fact that millions of people who had been enslaved and did not have any rights were now free and freed. And so it was established in the Constitution that people born in the United States were, by virtue of the fact that they were born in the United States, U.S. citizens. The principle has since been held to cover all persons, whether having been earlier enslaved or not, born in the United States, are U.S. citizens by virtue of their birth on U.S. soil. Birthright citizenship is very clear in its language that those persons born on U.S. soil are citizens by birth. Now, that as a constitutional principle means that to change it requires another constitutional amendment. And of course, changing the Constitution requires a 2/3 act of Congress and then ratification by 2/3, I believe, of states in the country. Changing constitutional principles is a long, arduous process, and it happens very infrequently. However, there is now, and has been for a while, a debate about whether that constitutional principle, or what's been seen to be a constitutional principle, could actually be changed by the Congress by statutory change. Most legal scholars believe that is unconstitutional, that the Congress by itself voting to eliminate birthright citizenship would not pass constitutional muster in the Supreme Court. But this administration has made the very strong allegation that birthright citizenship is not protected by the Constitution, and has actually established and declared by executive order of the president that birthright citizenship should be eliminated. That has been struck down by courts around the country, and it is again working its way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court spoke to the issue in this last term, but it spoke only to a procedural issue, whether the case was being brought properly. It has not spoken to the issue on the merits, as has been stated. And so whether it's actually unconstitutional or not is likely a question the Supreme Court will address in its coming term. Deeper importance here that I think it's important to understand with birthright citizenship is that there is this belief by this administration that getting rid of birthright citizenship would function as a deterrent to people coming to the country illegally. There really is no evidence of that, but at the same time, the importance of birthright citizenship and maintaining it, as it has been in the past as a constitutional principle, does mean that for us as a country, for people who have come to the country illegally, whatever one's views are about addressing that, if their children are born in the United States and therefore are citizens by birth, it means that that status of illegality in the country can only last for one generation. And if one were, for a country like ours as an immigration country, past, present, and future, if that principle was not in place, it is possible that we could be building into our democracy an ongoing class that's an underclass, largely without rights, which would be a very corrosive feature of our democracy as a democracy, because democracy does depend on participation, and participation is critical in terms of voting and full membership in the society. Getting rid of birthright citizenship could really undercut that aspect and that characteristic of a democratic society and system. Perhaps the most urgent one is for the government to have sufficient resources, personnel, to adjudicate citizenship applications in a reasonable period of time. The government generally has given itself and advises people that are eligible for citizenship that it will take about 6 months for the application to be adjudicated. And that seems like a fair waiting period. But often it takes a good deal longer than that just because of personnel shortages. So I would argue that we as a country have a very important national interest in people becoming citizens and becoming members of the society, participating fully in the society. So we should have and provide sufficient resources for people who decide to become citizens to be able to actually complete that process in a reasonable period of time. I guess beyond that, I would say that citizenship is valuable, both for us as a country. It's valuable for people who become citizens, and it would really be a good thing for it to be strongly encouraged, for people to be able to get the information they need to feel welcomed as citizens. In other words, an overall tone and an overall atmosphere in the country that recognizes citizenship as a positive thing and encourages it.